Hello, track guide time again. This time it's Spa Francorchamps, which I think means that I've done all the tracks in LMU, I think. So hopefully it's useful, hopefully you enjoy it. Thank you very much for watching. Here it comes. Right, so here we go. Fourth gear, I think you'll be in along here. Wanting to brake at that 100-meter sign. Difficult to see because it sort of disappears from vision, but as close as you can to where that is. I tend to brake as soon as it becomes visible again. And this in the left-hand side window. So once it disappears from your windscreen and then becomes visible again and through your left-hand window, that's the point where I brake. Brake very, very, very hard. All the way down to first gear with your car as far to the left as you can. So your left-hand tyres ideally are on the white line. Turn into this corner quite late because the idea really is to try and go sort of back on yourself. So you apex quite late around the corner, which allows you to get back on the power earlier. So slightly past where you think you should be. So you come back on yourself, try and get your right hand tyres on the right hand side of that white line. So you get to this sort of angle, and at this point here, if you've got your traction control settings reasonably low, you can accelerate quite aggressively with the idea that the back will start to slide just a little bit, which should give you a slightly better exit. If you go on the power very smoothly, that also can work, but you won't be able to get quite the same level of launch out of this corner. Use all the road on the exit up to the red and yellow curb. Don't go beyond that, because if you go beyond that, the car bounces a little bit and your traction control will kick in and you will lose time all the way down this next section. So up to about where I am here, just so your wheels just slightly skim over the red and yellow curb, but that's about it. So full blast down this hill. Up to, in my case in this car, I think it's fifth gear you get into. I'm not going to do that now, of course, because I'm going far too slowly. And coming up to Eau Rouge. I'm going to try and name corners here, but I'm shit at it, so please bear with me. So this first left-hand kick, which I think is Eau Rouge, you want to, or at least I cut this as much as you can. So you point your car in, you're as far to the right as you can be, so you're very near the wall. You cut across here so that your car is essentially going to skim over this section with your right hand tyres pretty much on the white line. It varies slightly from car to car because some cars do bounce a little bit more than others, but in the Lamborghini it's quite safe to do this, at least it seems it to me. As you're cutting across this point, you need to have your focus on the next part of the track, which I think is Radion. So as you're going through here, you need to already be looking at the apex of Radion, because you need to try and get as much of a smooth arc as you possibly can. So across here, like that, and at this point, you're looking up the hill, and you turn in. In some cars it's flat. In this, I have to do a very slight lift. And you want to try and get the car to move to be as far to the right as you can, but not really put your tyres on this right-hand red and yellow curb, because it tends to bounce the car off and it will make you go wide at the exit. So with your right-hand tyres kind of pretty much on the white line, but not too much further over. Obviously you can't see where you're going now, so just trying to, I try and aim for the tall tree there. I hope you can see that on my other little camera. There's kind of on all the trees you can see there's one that's slightly more prominent than the others. It's a little bit thin. It looks like a sort of dying Christmas tree almost. Try and aim roughly towards that. And that will bounce you over that curb. Again, it's very, very ruthless with its track limits, this place. So be very, very careful that you don't go beyond the white line, because you will get a track cut. Again, on the exit here, if you go beyond this white line, you will also get a track cut. So it's a case of just straightening the whole thing out as much as you possibly can. A lift if you need to, but the lift should come at the bottom of Radion, where you start to go up the hill. From that point on, it should all be flat, really. But if you do need to lift, just try and do it smoothly and not too aggressive on-off power type stuff, because that will upset the balance of things. So once again, full power down here. I think you'll get, in some cars you won't get out of fifth, but in this car you get up to sixth. And you're looking for where the curb on the left hand side begins. That's for me is the braking point. So as you approach this curb, as soon as you're upon it, put your left hand, immediately start to brake, but allow the car to drift so the left hand tires actually go onto this red and yellow curb, down to, in my case, third gear. Turn in quite early. Bloody gears won't work again. Completely cut this. So use the green section on the right, have your left hand tires just on the tarmac to the left of the white line. Anything beyond that, you'll get a track cut. Like I say, being third gear, but it won't let me go into third gear. Quick squirt of power in between the two, then a dab of brake. I put my left hand tires on the left hand side of the red and yellow curb here, and it kind of hooks the car and helps sort of pull it around the corner. As you start to exit this corner, don't be tempted to go too far out to the right, because there's a very, very short stretch of road here, so it's kind of something that you just have to sacrifice. You want to be able to keep your car as far to the left as you can in readiness for the next corner. So don't come much further out than sort of the middle of the road here, so you can sweep back across to the left, pretty much to where your left hand tires are on the white line again. And then just as you turn into this, you shouldn't need to touch the brakes, just possibly a lift so the car kind of tightens its line. Again, you can use the green runoff area to the right of the apex there, depending on the car you're in. It will bounce the car slightly, but sometimes that actually helps the car rotate. You just have to try in whichever your car of choice is. Then back on the power, use all the exit here up to about this point here. So your left hand tires are on the green section, your right hand tires are on the white line. This is perfectly fine, you won't get into trouble for this. And full power down the hill. I think you get up to fourth gear potentially. Again, you're starting to brake just as the yellow and red curb on the left begins. As you get to that point, try and point your car to where the actual corner begins. So where the red and yellow curb on the right is, as that starts to drop away and turn into the corner, that's what you're aiming for, because this is such a long corner that there's not really any benefit to staying out to the left. You're better off going like a V shape almost. So go down to there. You can either hug the inside of it and treat it as a U shape, or you can go slightly past and then back in on yourself, so you create a kind of a V. I tend to do the V if I can. So down here, you're braking all the way down to second gear. You go slightly past the curb, out again, still braking a little bit on a trail brake in second gear. So you come out to sort of about the middle of the road, still trail braking, and then start to turn back in again, clip the red and yellow curb again, and then power out, if that makes sense. Out to about this point here, maybe a little bit beyond, and then back over to the right, up to third in my case. As soon as you get over to the right and you hit this curb, you're back on the brakes again. You have to trail brake here because it's one of those corners where you think you've turned in early enough and you end up missing the apex. You have to turn in far earlier than it feels like you do. It's very, very delicate, just a very slight application of brake at this point, just to get the sort of front of the car to grip a little bit more and allow you to turn in here. As soon as you can clip this red and yellow curb, which hopefully you will manage to do, you're back on full power and drifting out to the right. And again, you can use an awful lot of exit here, so your right hand tires are on the green, left hand tires on the white line, or as close to that as you can get it. I think this corner is no name. We'll say it is. Certainly doesn't have a name now. But down here, in my case, I think you get up to fifth gear, possibly not quite fifth gear, still fourth. As you're approaching Pouon, if I remember rightly, get the car over onto the right hand red and yellow curb. Brake just before these two Toyota Gazoo Racing signs. It's I don't know how well it comes across on the camera, but there's an area just here where the track starts to darken. You can see that quite clearly in these conditions, but sometimes when the track conditions are different, it's difficult to see. So if you use just before the Toyota signs as a reference, that's something that should hopefully be there. You've also got this black flag sign up here. That's kind of another reference you can use. So your right hand tires are on the red and yellow curb. Brake in as straight a line as you can, sort of pointing the car towards the inside curb here. I go down to fourth gear, brake in a straight line, hard and then immediately start to trail off the brake as you turn, because this is one of those corners where it's very easy for the back to just suddenly completely break away and you spin round. So if you're braking a little bit too much, that's very likely to happen here. So with practice, you'll hopefully discover that if you trail off to the right amount, that you've got minimal brake here, like so probably 5%, that helps the car continue to rotate, but hopefully won't make it too unstable. Obviously it depends on the setup you're using and the car you're using, but in my experience it's a very difficult corner to get right this. So you want to get the car to the left as much as you can, but I don't actually go onto the curb here because it will bounce the car and cause you to go wide. So get your left hand tyres onto the white line if you can, or as close to that white line as you can get them, and then be patient. Should be off the brake at this point, back on the accelerator a little bit, and then you just have to judge where you get the car to feel as though it will continue to get around this corner with full power. If you do it too early, you will go out beyond this point, you'll get a track cut. If you do it too late, you'll lose time. So it's just a case of repetition and practicing where you can get back on that power. Sometimes if you get it slightly wrong, you'll find that you're on your way off the track, in which case just a very, very slight lift. Try and keep your steering radius pretty constant and adjust things if you need to just by coming off the power slightly. But don't start doing sudden movements like this, because when the car's all loaded up like that, it's very likely to just break away. You can use all of this exit here up to the point I'm at now. So right hand tyres on the green, left hand tyres on the white line. Drift back across. I think I get up to 5th gear here. Now the braking point for the next corner is the shadow of the bridge. In these conditions the shadow is pretty obvious. In other conditions it won't be, so use the bridge itself as your reference. As soon as you go under the bridge, that's where you want to begin braking. I go down to 3rd gear for this corner, but I know a lot of people prefer 2nd, just personal preference. So brake here in a straight line down to 3rd. Trail brake off slightly, move the car very, very close to this curb. There's no massive downside to brushing over it, but it does tend to bounce the car a little bit. So if you can keep your right hand tyres as close to the white line as possible, or on the white line, nice smooth arc around here. As soon as you get to this sort of point, you're facing, it's kind of a straight line in front of you to the next inside curb. You go back on the power fully just for a second or so, and then it's just a dab of brake to get the car to turn again. Same system, just keeping your left hand tyres on the white line, and then as early as you dare, back on full power. Now when you do that, the car will naturally run out here. If you've got the traction control quite low, you can sometimes get a nice little tail slide going, which allows you to get on the power earlier in essence. You can use more exit here than you think you can. You can get the car right out, so it all kind of, I mean to me now it looks like the right hand side of the car is in the sand, but it really isn't. It's still okay at this point. You don't get a track cut and everything remains quite stable. If you go past a certain point, instability will become an issue. And again, depending on the car you're driving, some are happy to do this more than others, but use as much of that exit curb as you can, because it will allow you to get on the power earlier, which obviously improves your times. And down the hill, back over to the left. Want to brake just as the curb on the left begins there. Now I stay in 3rd, but there's no harm in going down to 2nd. Brakes just before the curb, because it's very easy to brake a little bit too late here and drift wide. Try and trail brake in so that your right hand tyres just skim over this curb. If you go actually over the curb properly, again it will bounce the car a little bit, so maybe that isn't the best idea. Just try and brush the red and yellow curbs like that. Back on full power, use all of the exit here. Get your left hand tyres onto the green, right hand tyres on the white line. Once you're in this position, just leave the car here, keep going forward. You don't need to go back onto the tarmac properly, because then you're just tightening the corner, the next corner, making it more difficult for yourself. So tolerate that brrr and just drive down the road like I'm doing here. Start to turn in quite late here. Try your very best to get your right hand tyres just to clip onto the inside curb here just slightly. What I tend to do is, I'm in 3rd gear at this point, as you turn it, I can't do this corner flat. I don't know if you can in some cars, but certainly in the Lamborghini I can't do it flat. But when you get to about this point here, you're at the limit of third gear, getting towards the limiter. So I tend to do a kind of a very laboured slow gear change. So lift off, go into fourth, then go back on. And that small lift for just a fraction of a second seems to be enough just to tighten the line. So when you go back on the power in fourth, the car won't run any wider than this sort of point here. This sort of point is fine. If you go beyond that into the sand, it'll slow you down for one, and secondly, you'll get a track cut. So off we go again. Obviously full acceleration. This thing we're coming up to now is Blanchiment. So get your car mostly off the track, so your left-hand tires are on the white line, and you should be able to do this flat. Not all cars can, but most I think will be able to. You just have to get your turn-in point right, so you get as close to this left-hand curb as possible. Don't hit it, because it'll bounce you again. But if you go too wide and miss it, you will undoubtedly go wide on the exit here, which will give you a track cut. So you either lift to not get the track cut, or you just accept the fact you're going to get penalised in some capacity. And back over to the left, go under the Michelin sign. Braking point for me is about a car's length before that last Michelin sign, so just before the 100-meter board. About here is where I would brake. So yeah, maybe 2 cars lengths before. 2 car lengths, sorry. So brake hard all the way down to first gear. Get your car over to the left with your left-hand tyres on the white line. Turn in quite late. Now you can skim the sausage curb here just slightly, again depending on the car you're in. The Lamborghini's all right with it. Others do tend to bounce a little bit more. But either way, you need to get your right-hand tyres onto the red and yellow curb as much as you can. So you're cutting in as close to the right as you possibly can. At this point, don't be tempted to go too far over to the left, because what you're concentrating on here is a good exit out of the second part of the chicane. So try and keep the car in the middle of the road. Quick burst of power, then back on the very, very light brake to sort of tighten the car's line. Get in here, don't touch the sausage curb at this point, just keep your left-hand tyres on the red and yellow curb until you can get away with full power. This is a corner where that technique I've talked about before, where you kind of use sort of 30-40% throttle for a fraction of a second just to stabilize the back of the car and then go to full power. Seems to really help, because if you just stamp on the throttle, you'll go into a ridiculous tail slide and you'll lose time or possibly control. So yeah, that tends to work. You can go quite far out on the exit here. You can certainly put your left-hand tyres beyond the white line without getting penalised. If you go beyond the curb, you'll get penalised, but you can go slightly beyond the white line, which can be advantageous. And that is, excuse me, Spa. Spa. So I'll just go around again a little bit quicker. Fourth gear, brake at the 100. I hope it was apparent then that the car kind of slid round a little bit. There, very, very close to the wall. Cut across here, looking up there. Tyres are a little bit cold from going slow, but hopefully the general idea is coming across. 6th gear, looking out for the curb on the left. 4, 3, turn in here, quick burst of power, just to lift across and back on full power. Oh, a bit wide at the curb starts, down to second, out to the middle, back in again, skim the inside curb, down to third, there's all the exit there. 5th, onto the curb. Keep the steering as constant as you can. Brake at the Avis sign. Bit of power, dab a brake. Right just before the curb. On the power, leave the car out here. Up to fourth. A little bit wide, but I think I was just about okay. Top gear. To the left, turn in quite early. All nice and flat. And brake just before the Michelin sign. Bit of power. And there we go.
Lap 2, 23.34.
So yeah, hope that's in some way helpful. I'm now going to put a slightly quicker lap on. Couldn't quite do it to 19. I've done it in the past, but I just couldn't do it while I was recording this. So it's a 220.01 or something like that. Very frustrating. Anyway, hope this is helpful. Hope it was in some way enjoyable. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Ta-ta.
Lap 2, 20.02.